AITA for refusing to host my sister's wedding after she treated me unfairly during her engagement. I, 32F, have always been close to my younger sister, Jenna, 28F. Growing up, we were inseparable, sharing clothes, secrets, and even a bedroom for a few years. However, as adults, things started to change. Jenna became more controlling and judgmental, especially about family events and gatherings. I always try to brush it off, telling myself that everyone has quirks. But recently, it reached a breaking point that I can't ignore. 2 years ago, Jenna got engaged to her fiancé, Mark, 30M. At first, I was genuinely happy for them. I thought about how excited I was going to be to help her plan the wedding and support her during what should be one of the happiest times in her life. She, however, quickly made it clear that she expected me to take on a lot of responsibility without much consideration for my own life. She assumed I would host the rehearsal dinner at my house and take care of all the decorations for it, even though I live in a small apartment and work full-time. I tried to discuss this with her calmly, explaining that my apartment wouldn't be suitable for hosting such an event and that I had limited free time because of work. She dismissed my concerns, saying, "Oh, it'll be fine. Doesn't need to be big or perfect. Just make it happen." I felt pressured, but I still tried to help in other ways, like helping choose the theme and suggesting vendors. As the engagement progressed, her demands became more unreasonable. She expected me to pick up her dress from the tailor, manage RSVPs, organize seating charts, and even mediate between her and our parents when disagreements arose. She would frequently text me at midnight asking for updates or expecting immediate solutions, even if I was at work or had plans. I felt like I was being treated more like a personal assistant than a sister. The breaking point came a few weeks ago when she asked me to host the entire wedding at my apartment. She explained that it would save money, and she didn't want the stress of a venue. I reminded her that my place is a one-bedroom apartment with barely enough space for 10 people comfortably, let alone 50 guests. I suggested alternatives, like local community halls or restaurants that could accommodate everyone. She snapped at me, saying, "If you can't help me, then you don't really love me or care about me. I guess family isn't that important to you." The guilt trip made me hesitate, but ultimately, I knew it was unreasonable to expect me to host an event that would be impossible to pull off. I told her firmly that I would not be hosting the wedding and that she needed to find another venue. She was furious, accusing me of trying to embarrass her in front of our family and saying that she couldn't believe I was prioritizing my own convenience over her happiness. She also brought up past events where I had helped her, trying to guilt me into saying yes. I reminded her that helping pick out a dress or giving advice is very different from hosting an entire wedding in my tiny apartment. Since then, our family has been divided. Some relatives think I'm being unreasonable and should just compromise for my sister, while others agree that Jenna's expectations were extreme and unfair. My parents are trying to mediate, but they seem to lean toward Jenna because they are worried about family harmony. I feel frustrated because it seems like everyone is pressuring me to sacrifice my boundaries for someone else's convenience. I've tried explaining that boundaries are not the same as being unhelpful or uncaring. I offer to help in other ways that are manageable, like attending vendor meetings with her, helping write invitations, and organizing small details she can actually implement herself. But she keeps insisting that hosting the wedding is the ultimate test of my love for her. I can't help but feel that she's manipulating the situation and that agreeing to her demand would set a dangerous precedent. For the future, I love my sister, but I also have a life, responsibilities, and limits. I don't want to resent her or the wedding because I was forced into something impossible. Now, Jenna is threatening to cut me out of the wedding entirely if I don't comply. She says I'm selfish and that I'm making the entire family take sides. I'm torn because I want to maintain a relationship with her, but I also want to stand up for myself. So, AITA for refusing to host my sister's wedding despite her insisting it's the only way I can show her I love her. I've tried to compromise in other ways, but she refuses to accept anything short of hosting the entire event. My concern is that agreeing would create resentment and set a pattern where my limits are ignored in the future. Has anyone experienced this kind of extreme expectation from a family member. I feel stuck between wanting to be supportive and maintaining my own boundaries. I'm hoping for advice on whether I'm truly being selfish here or if standing my ground is justified. I want to be part of her life and the wedding, but I also want to preserve my own sanity and not be taken advantage of. How do I navigate this without causing permanent damage to our relationship? If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to the channel. It helps the content grow and motivates me to create even more great videos. Turn on notifications so you don't miss any new uploads. By the way, I'm curious, when do you usually watch my videos? While working, studying, or just relaxing at home? Let me know in the comments. I'd love to hear from you. Thank you for your support. AITA for refusing to help my sister financially, even though it's causing a huge rift in our family. I, 32F, have always been careful with my finances. I grew up in a family where money was tight, and my parents drilled into me the importance of budgeting, saving, and living within my means. I work as a software developer and have been financially independent since I was 23. I rent a modest apartment, drive a used car, and save aggressively for retirement. I'm comfortable, but I'm not rich by any means. My younger sister, Lily, 28F, has always had a different approach to money. She works as a freelance photographer, and while she's talented, her income is inconsistent. Over the years, she has bounced from one apartment to another, often relying on friends and family to bail her out when things got tight. Our parents have supported her when she ran into trouble, but I usually tried to stay out of financial matters unless she asked for advice. Recently, things escalated. Lily decided she wanted to buy a house. She found a small, somewhat run-down property in a neighborhood that is starting to gentrify, and she immediately became obsessed with it. The asking price was higher than she could afford, and her savings were nowhere near enough for a down payment. She came to me and asked for $40,000 to cover part of the down payment. I was shocked. I told her I couldn't give her that kind of money. I explained that while I could maybe lend her a smaller amount as a loan she would be able to repay, giving her $40,000 as a gift would severely impact my own financial plans. I also reminded her that buying a house is a huge commitment and that she should probably consider renting a few more years until she has a stable income. She got very upset. She told me that I was choosing money over family and that if I truly cared about her, I would help. She said that all our cousins and friends have been helping each other, and I was being cold and selfish. I try to explain that I support her in other ways. I give her advice, help with job applications, and occasionally cover smaller emergencies, but she wasn't satisfied. Things came to a head at our family dinner last weekend. Lily brought up the topic again in front of everyone. She said that she couldn't believe I was letting her struggle when I have the means to help. Our parents were visibly uncomfortable. My mom asked if I could reconsider, and my dad suggested maybe a smaller contribution. I stuck to my guns and said no. After that dinner, Lily stopped speaking to me. She posted on social media about family members who care more about their bank accounts than their siblings, which made some of our relatives angry at me. Several extended family members have called me to pressure me into helping, saying things like, "She's family, you should support her, and don't let money come between you." I've tried to reason with Lily privately, but she won't answer my calls or messages. I feel stuck. On one hand, I don't want to ruin my relationship with my sister or alienate my family. On the other hand, I can't just give her $40,000. It's my life savings, and I have plans that don't include bailing her out of a financial decision she's chosen to make without fully preparing. Some friends say I should just give her the money to keep peace in the family. Others say I'm right to protect my finances and that she needs to learn responsibility. My parents are disappointed and think I'm being too rigid, but I feel like if I give in, it will only set a precedent for future financial demands. The situation has also made me reflect on our childhood. While I understand that Lily struggled more than I did, I can't ignore the fact that she has repeatedly made impulsive financial decisions. I'm proud of my own financial discipline, but I also don't want my refusal to help to be seen as me being heartless. So, AITA for refusing to give my sister $40,000 to buy a house, knowing it has caused tension with her and the rest of my family. want to maintain a relationship with her, but I also want to stay financially secure and set boundaries. I don't know if I'm handling this the wrong way or if my family is being unfair by expecting me to sacrifice my own stability for her dream. I should mention that I did offer alternative ways to support her, helping her create a savings plan, connecting her with lenders, and even offering a smaller, interest-free loan of $5,000 for immediate needs. She refused all of it, insisting that only the full amount would suffice. I've never been in a situation where saying no to family has led to such drama. Now, I feel like any decision I make will be criticized. If I give her anything, I'm weak and enabling. And if I don't, I'm cold and selfish. It's exhausting and stressful. I want to clarify that I do love my sister and want to see her succeed. I've supported her in countless ways over the years, emotionally and practically. I just cannot compromise my financial security in such a massive way. I also fear that if I give her this money, it will undermine the progress she could make by learning to budget, save, and plan for major purchases responsibly. So, Reddit AITA for setting this boundary, even though it has caused a major fallout in my family? Or should I just bite the bullet and give her the money to preserve the relationship, despite the risk to my own financial future? AITA for losing my cool at my sister's wedding and being called unforgivable. So, this is going to be long because there's a lot of context, but I'll try to keep it as clear as possible. I, 32M, have a younger sister, Emily, 29F, and a younger brother, Ryan, 27M. Our family has always been close, but also kind of high-strung, particularly when it comes to weddings. Emily got engaged about a year ago to her fiancé, Mark, 30M, and from the start, the planning seemed to be a battlefield rather than a celebration. Now, Emily and I have always had a complicated relationship. We're close, but she's a perfectionist and very controlling, especially when it comes to family events. Ryan is more laid back, and our parents are, well, very traditional, which complicates things even more. I've always tried to stay out of the wedding planning drama, but apparently, that's easier said than done. Fast forward to the wedding day. Everything was going fairly smoothly until the ceremony itself. Emily had a very specific vision for how everyone should be positioned, and apparently, my role as best brother required me to memorize a complicated series of cues and steps. I did my best, but at one point the officiant asked me to stand slightly to the left, and I misstepped. Emily noticed immediately and whispered sharply, "No, you're in the wrong spot." I apologized, thinking it was fine, but she didn't stop. Every move I made after that seemed to be scrutinized, and her whispers turned into low-level yelling at me in front of the wedding party. I felt myself starting to get flustered. Weddings are stressful, sure, but Emily's tone was not just critical. It was humiliating. After the ceremony, at the family photo session, she continued to micromanage everything. At one point, she grabbed my hand and pulled me to a position she thought was better, while saying, "Why can't you just follow instructions? You're ruining the pictures." This was the breaking point for me. I lost my temper. I snapped, telling her that I was doing my best, that she was being completely unreasonable, and that the way she was treating me in front of everyone was unacceptable. I may have raised my voice more than I should have, but I was so frustrated that I just couldn't hold it in anymore. My words were something along the lines of, "Emily, this is your wedding. Yes, but I am your brother. I'm not a prop to be moved around like furniture. You are being ridiculous, and everyone could see it. Stop yelling at me." For a moment, there was silence. Some of the bridesmaids looked shocked, my parents looked horrified, and my brother Ryan tried to intervene to calm me down. Emily turned red, ran off to her room, and Mark looked completely confused. The rest of the day was tense, to say the least. Later that evening, after the reception, Emily came up to me with tears in her eyes and said I had ruined her special day and that what I did was unforgivable. She also told my parents and Mark that I had been acting selfishly and aggressively. My parents tried to calm both of us down, but Emily would not forgive me. She said that I had embarrassed her in front of everyone and that I didn't respect her vision for the wedding. Ryan tried to defend me a little, saying that I had been under a lot of stress and that Emily had been overly harsh, but my parents seemed to agree with her, though they didn't explicitly scold me. Mark, I think, tried to stay neutral, but I could feel that the atmosphere was tense. Since the wedding, Emily hasn't spoken to me except for a few short texts where she's expressed that she's hurt and angry. She has blocked me on social media, and my parents keep hinting that I need to apologize properly to make things right. I did send a message apologizing for raising my voice, but I also explained that I felt humiliated and disrespected in front of everyone, and that I didn't appreciate being treated like a prop. Emily hasn't responded to that, and honestly, I don't know if I should even try to push for a conversation or just give her space. The issue is that every time I think about what happened, I feel justified in how I reacted. I was being shouted at repeatedly, micromanaged, and treated as if I had no agency. But the fact that it happened on her wedding day makes me feel like maybe I overstepped. My friends are split. Some say I was justified because nobody should be treated that way, even on a wedding day, while others say I should have just smiled, nodded, and held my composure no matter what. Now, months later, the tension is still there. Family gatherings are awkward, and I feel like Emily has permanently branded me as the villain of her wedding day. I've thought about trying to have a heart-to-heart with her, but I also don't want to reopen wounds or make her feel like I'm trying to gaslight her feelings. So, AITA for losing my temper at my sister's wedding? Or was her reaction unreasonable given how she treated me that day? I feel stuck because on one hand, I feel like my feelings were valid, but on the other hand, I'm being told that I ruined the happiest day of her life. I really want to repair the relationship eventually, but I don't know if that's possible without admitting full guilt, which I don't feel is accurate. The more I think about it, the more I wonder if families ever really reconcile after incidents like this, or if I should just accept that Emily may never forgive me. I'm desperate to understand if I truly crossed a line, or if I was simply reacting to extreme stress and unreasonable behavior. I feel like I've lost my sister over something that, in the grand scheme of things, might not even matter, but the family drama and tension it caused have made me question everything about my role in our family. Has anyone else experienced being vilified for standing up for themselves at a wedding or major family event? I'm looking for honest perspectives because right now, I feel like I'm trapped between guilt and vindication, and it's exhausting. AITA? AITA for refusing to help my brother with his wedding after he insulted my fiancée? So here's the story. I, 32F, have been with my fiancé, Jake, 34M, for about 4 years. We met in college and have been inseparable ever since. Jake is kind, funny, and completely devoted, and I honestly couldn't imagine my life without him. My brother, Mark, 29M, has always been a little difficult. He's smart and talented, but he tends to be self-centered and overly competitive. We love each other, but there's a history of tension, mostly stemming from childhood rivalries and differences in personality. Recently, Mark got engaged to his longtime girlfriend, Emily, 28F. He called me a few months ago to ask if Jake and I could help him plan the wedding. At first, I was flattered. I like to think I'm good at organizing events, and I genuinely wanted to help him have a beautiful day. We started by discussing dates, venues, themes, and catering options. It was going well, at least superficially, but then things started to go downhill. Mark has very specific ideas about everything, and he tends to belittle suggestions that don't align with his vision. During our first major planning session, I casually suggested a few caterers that Jake and I had used in the past for other events. Mark immediately dismissed them, saying he didn't want cheap, low-quality food, and that my suggestions were laughable because I had zero experience in real wedding planning. I tried to brush it off and suggested he pick someone himself if he didn't like my recommendations. Jake, trying to be supportive, suggested a compromise. Maybe we could all meet with the caterers first before making a decision. Mark snapped at him, saying, "Why do you even need to weigh in? You wouldn't understand what a proper wedding requires." I was shocked. I told him it was uncalled for, and he just rolled his eyes and walked away. After that, I started noticing a pattern. Every time I or Jake suggested something, even minor things like color schemes or flower arrangements, Mark would find a way to criticize it personally. One weekend, we spent an afternoon looking at venues. I found a few that were beautiful, affordable, and convenient. When I showed him, he smirked and said, "I can't believe you'd think that's a suitable place." You clearly have no taste." When I asked him why he was being so rude, he shrugged and said, "I'm just being honest. Don't be so sensitive." Jake tried to support me again, but Mark lashed out at him too, calling him irrelevant and overly opinionated for someone who isn't family enough to matter. It reached a breaking point when Mark sent me a long text listing rules for how I could participate in the planning. One of the rules was that Jake was not allowed to attend any meetings, as he might influence me to make bad choices. He also said I shouldn't give opinions unless he specifically asked for them. And even then, he expected me to phrase everything as if it was just a suggestion from a humble, inexperienced relative. I tried to explain that Jake and I are a package deal, and if he wanted my help, he needed to treat him with respect. He responded with a long rant about how Jake doesn't belong in our family dynamic and should know his place, which felt incredibly insulting and hurtful. I decided to step back. I told Mark that I loved him and wanted to help, but I could not participate under these conditions. He got furious. He accused me of being dramatic, ruining his wedding planning, and choosing my boyfriend over my brother. He said he would handle everything himself, which was fine by me, honestly, because I didn't want to be in a toxic environment anyway. But then our parents got involved. They called me, saying I was being unreasonable and that I should put aside my hurt feelings for the sake of family. They argued that weddings are stressful, and Mark wasn't intentionally trying to be mean. He just needed control. I tried, explaining that the comments about Jake weren't about control. They were outright disrespectful and personal attacks, but they didn't seem to understand. They said I should get over it and help anyway. Since then, I haven't had any contact with Mark about the wedding. I helped in small ways from afar, like reviewing his wedding website, but I made it clear that Jake won't be participating. This caused more tension with my parents, who think I'm being selfish. Even my fiancé, who has been nothing but supportive, is frustrated that I'm being pressured to engage with someone who insulted him repeatedly. Mark has texted me a few times, trying to guilt me by saying, "I can't believe you'd let your boyfriend come between us," and "This is the biggest day of my life, and you're making it about yourself." I feel torn because I do want my brother to have a good wedding, but I also feel like my boundaries and my fiancé's dignity matter too. I don't want to be in a situation where either of us is treated disrespectfully. At the same time, our parents keep insisting I should compromise, and now Mark is framing me as the villain. Friends are divided too. Some say I'm right to protect myself and Jake. Others say I'm overreacting and should just swallow it for one day. So, AITA for refusing to help my brother with his wedding because of the way he insulted my fiancé? I feel like I'm protecting our relationship and setting boundaries, but I also don't want to hurt my family. AITA for refusing to host my sister's wedding rehearsal dinner at my house, even though she claims I'm being selfish. I, 34F, have always been the responsible sibling. My younger sister, Emily, 28F, is lovely in many ways, but she has a very strong personality and tends to expect the world to revolve around her plans. Recently, she got engaged to her fiancé, Daniel, 30M, and I've been helping her with wedding planning in small ways. I offered to help find vendors, taste cake options, and even helped with some decorations for her engagement party. But when she asked me to host a rehearsal dinner at my house, I hit a wall. My house is fairly small. I live in a 2-bedroom townhouse that I share with my partner, Alex, 36M. We don't have a separate dining room. Our living space doubles as our eating area, and it's just enough for our immediate household. Emily knows this because she's been over multiple times. When she brought up the idea of hosting the rehearsal dinner here, she said she wanted a cozy, intimate setting for close family and a few friends, about 20 people. I explained that our space could barely fit 10 people comfortably, and we certainly wouldn't have room for tables, chairs, and food for 20 people without it feeling chaotic. Emily brushed off my concerns. She said, "It's just 20 people. We can make it work. You're being overly cautious." I tried to reason with her, saying it wasn't just about being cautious, it was about space and logistics. Alex supported me quietly, but Emily said we were both being dramatic. Then she dropped the kicker. She said she was relying on me because all our other family members were unavailable, and she was stressed about paying for a venue. According to her, hosting it at my place would save her money and keep the gathering intimate. I understand being stressed about wedding costs. I really do. But I still couldn't reconcile hosting an event in a place that wasn't suitable. I also have a dog, Max, who can be anxious around large groups, and I didn't want to stress him out. I offered alternatives. I suggested we rent a small private room at a local restaurant, or even have a backyard barbecue if she really wanted a homey feel, but she said those options weren't personal enough and would ruin the vibe. I even offered to help her with the budget for a small venue, so she wouldn't feel financial pressure, but she seemed uninterested. Our conversation escalated after that. Emily accused me of being selfish and unsupportive. She said I was making her wedding planning experience miserable and that no one else in the family would refuse to help her like this. I tried to explain that refusing to host a rehearsal dinner doesn't mean I'm not supporting her wedding. It just means I have limits, and I also have a household to manage. Alex pointed out that it would be unfair to host 20 people in a tiny townhouse that isn't equipped for that kind of gathering. But Emily said we were letting her down and prioritizing ourselves over family. I think part of the tension comes from the fact that Emily has always assumed I would step in for her when she needed something, often without considering whether it's feasible. For example, last year she asked me to host her birthday party at my house, which I politely declined because it was right after I had major renovations and I didn't want the stress. She threw a minor fit then too, but it never escalated to this level. This feels different because now she's tying it to her wedding, which seems like a bigger deal in her mind. I tried to compromise. I said I could host a small pre-wedding dinner for our immediate family of 6, which could still be intimate, and I could help her plan a separate small event for her friends elsewhere. She refused, saying it wouldn't count as the rehearsal dinner if all her friends weren't included. I also suggested having it at a family member's house with more space, but she doesn't want to inconvenience anyone else. After several back and forths, Emily stopped talking to me for 2 days. Then she sent me a text saying that she's reconsidering having me involved in any wedding planning because I'm selfish and controlling and can't put family first. I was hurt because I genuinely want to support her, but I also have boundaries. I feel like I'm being reasonable. Hosting 20 people in a small townhouse with no proper dining space isn't reasonable, and neither is putting my dog in a stressful situation. Now, our parents are involved. They agree that my townhouse isn't suitable for 20 people, but think I should somehow make it work because it's for Emily's wedding. Alex and I both feel uncomfortable being pressured to host a large gathering in a space that isn't fit for it. We've been married for 5 years and have our own routines and comfort levels, which include not turning our home into a public event space for 20 people. The last message I got from Emily was essentially an ultimatum. Either host the rehearsal dinner or accept that I'm cutting myself out of this wedding. I haven't responded yet. I want to maintain a relationship with her, and I want to support her wedding, but I also refuse to host a large event in a space that isn't safe or comfortable for everyone, including my partner and our dog. AITA for refusing to host the rehearsal dinner at my house. Even though it's my sister's wedding and she's trying to pressure me, I feel like she's being unfair by framing this as me being selfish when I think I'm being responsible and considerate of the limitations of my home. AITA for ruining my sister's wedding because I refuse to lie. I, 28F, have always been the honest one in my family. I grew up in a household where white lies were often expected to keep the peace, especially around big family events. My younger sister, Emily, 25F, is more strategic, let's say. She's smart, charming, and has always had a way of bending situations to her advantage. Our parents are very traditional, and family reputation matters a lot to them. A few months ago, Emily got engaged to her long-term boyfriend, Mark, 27M. He's a great guy, and I genuinely like him, but he comes from a very different background. His family is less traditional, more laid-back, and frankly, not as wealthy. Emily was thrilled, but also stressed because she wants the wedding to be perfect according to our parents' standards. That includes everything from the guest list to the decorations, to the way people perceive her in photos. About a month before the wedding, Emily called me and asked for a huge favor. She said that my parents had expressed some concerns about Mark's family. Apparently, my mom casually mentioned that Mark's parents might not fit in with our circle because of their different social standing. Emily was upset and insisted she wanted to make a good impression, so she asked me to help her smooth things over with my parents. I thought she meant offering moral support, but she had something else in mind. She wanted me to write a fake, glowing review of Mark's family, something along the lines of "they are so cultured and refined. We're lucky to have them join our family," on a group chat that included both our parents and extended family. She said it would calm my mom down and prevent drama at the wedding. I was taken aback. I tried to explain that I couldn't lie like that, especially to my parents, because it would backfire if anyone found out. She got frustrated, saying I was being dramatic and ruining everything. I tried to compromise. I offered to speak positively about Mark's parents in person, but refused to send a message that was dishonest. Emily argued that my refusal would embarrass her in front of the family and make the wedding tense. I reminded her that the truth is that Mark's parents are perfectly nice people, just not what my family considers high society. I wasn't disparaging them. I was just refusing to exaggerate. She accused me of being petty and unsupportive. A few days later, the group chat became more heated. My parents started asking why I hadn't posted anything, and Emily subtly blamed me for causing anxiety. I still didn't budge. I finally decided that I would not participate in that lie, no matter the consequences. I tried to redirect the conversation toward excitement about the wedding itself rather than appearances, but it didn't help. The day of the wedding arrived, and tensions were high. Emily had made it very clear that she expected me to play along and make everything seem perfect, or at least make my parents happy. During the ceremony, everything went smoothly, but at the reception, my mom made a comment about Mark's parents, expressing relief that they fit in so well. Everyone looked at me, expecting me to agree. I quietly said, "They're wonderful people, exactly who they are, and I'm glad they're here." I didn't lie about how cultured they were or how refined. I just stated the truth that they were kind and enjoyable to be around. Emily immediately pulled me aside and whispered angrily, "Why did you have to ruin it? Everyone thinks you're trying to start drama. You just embarrassed me in front of my in-laws." I tried to explain that I wasn't trying to embarrass anyone. I just couldn't say something I knew wasn't true. She stormed off, and for the rest of the evening, she was cold and distant toward me. Later, my parents and extended family cornered me separately. They were upset that I didn't go along with the plan to make Emily's wedding seamless. My dad said I was being selfish and that my actions cast a shadow over the day. My mom said it was inappropriate for me to refuse a small favor that would have kept the peace. Meanwhile, Mark's parents were confused but polite, and no one else seemed to notice or care about what I did. The next day, Emily sent me a long message detailing how disappointed she was. She claimed that I had ruined her dream wedding by not pretending, and that my moral stance was self-righteous and unnecessary. She said she felt humiliated in front of everyone and that our relationship might never recover. I responded calmly, explaining that I didn't lie to insult anyone and that I genuinely like her in-laws, but I cannot compromise my integrity. She hasn't replied since. Since then, the family has been divided. My parents subtly express disappointment when I visit. Emily avoids me, and a few relatives have hinted that I overreacted and should have just done it to keep things smooth. I feel guilty at times because I don't like seeing the tension, but I also feel like compromising my honesty would have been worse. So, AITA for refusing to lie about Mark's family and, in effect, causing a rift at my sister's wedding. I did everything I could to be polite and kind, but I would not post a false statement. I can't tell if I'm the unreasonable one here. I want to know if I should have just gone along with her request to avoid drama, or if I was right to stick to my principles, even if it meant causing tension at such a big family event. The fallout has been intense, and I keep wondering if I overestimated how important honesty is compared to family harmony. But at the same time, I don't want to feel like I have to lie to make someone else happy. So, AITA? AITA for confronting my sister about her parenting choices at my wedding and causing a huge family rift. This all started last year when my fiancé, Tom, and I began planning our wedding. We've been together for 6 years, and we both come from large, close-knit families. My sister, Rachel, is 5 years older than me, married with 3 kids, and has always been something of a perfectionist. Growing up, She was the type of sibling who would correct everything I did, from my choice of clothes to how I answer questions at family dinners. I've tried to be patient and maintain a cordial relationship, but her tendency to lecture or criticize has always been present. When we set the date for the wedding, Rachel immediately started sending me lists of advice, ranging from seating arrangements to the dress code for children. I politely thanked her, but insisted that we had things under control. She pushed back, claiming that she had years of parenting and family experience and that I should listen to her. I brushed it off, thinking, as always, that it was easier to ignore her than fight. The conflict began a few months before the wedding, when Rachel insisted on bringing her 3 kids to the ceremony, despite our repeated requests to limit the number of children in attendance. Tom and I wanted a semi-formal adult ceremony with minimal distractions. Rachel argued that it was unfair to exclude her children and that she would make it work no matter what. We explained that it was our day and that we had already planned for a specific number of guests, including children, and that adding her kids would overwhelm our venue. She became defensive and hinted that our decision made us unreasonable and selfish. I tried to be diplomatic, but the tension escalated further. About 2 weeks before the wedding, we learned from a mutual friend that Rachel had been telling everyone that I was tyrannical and controlling when it came to family matters. I was hurt and frustrated because I had been trying to avoid conflict, but this made it personal. I decided to confront her directly rather than let things fester. During a family gathering the weekend before the wedding, I asked to speak with Rachel privately. I told her that I appreciated her input, but that her behavior and the way she was spreading negative comments about me were not acceptable. I also addressed her parenting in a way I regret, saying that she sometimes prioritized her children's needs over the needs of others in a way that caused tension and disruption in social situations. I tried to keep it constructive, framing it around how it affected family dynamics, rather than attacking her personally. Her reaction was explosive. She yelled at me, accused me of being jealous and vindictive, and stormed out. The confrontation spilled into the rest of the family, with relatives taking sides. On the day of the wedding, she barely spoke to me and refused to follow the schedule we had planned for her kids. During the ceremony, one of her children threw a tantrum because they weren't allowed to wander around the venue, and Rachel snapped at the staff, adding to the chaos. After the wedding, my parents called me, upset that I had ruined the family harmony, and accused me of being harsh and confrontational. Tom was supportive and reminded me that it was our wedding and our decisions. I also received messages from extended family members, some saying I was right to stand up for myself, others claiming I was unnecessarily harsh and that I should have let it slide for the sake of family peace. Since then, Rachel has cut off almost all communication with me, including texts, calls, and social media messages. My parents are still trying to mediate, but are frustrated with both of us. I feel a mix of relief and guilt. Relief because I stood up for myself and Tom and got to have the wedding we wanted. Guilt because the fallout has been extreme, and my sister, who I love despite our differences, has shut me out. I wonder if I was wrong to confront her directly and address her parenting choices in front of the family, or if I should have found a more subtle way to handle it. I don't want to lose my sister, but I also don't want to feel like I have to tolerate behavior that is disruptive and disrespectful. My friends say I did the right thing, but the family reaction makes me question whether I handled it in the best way. So AITA for confronting my sister about her parenting at my wedding and causing a huge family rift? AITA for refusing to invite my sister to my wedding after she humiliated me in front of our entire extended family? I, 29F, have always been close to my sister, Jessica, 32F, but our relationship has been complicated by her tendency to be extremely critical and, frankly, overbearing. We grew up in a household where competition and comparison were constant, and while I thought I had outgrown those dynamics, Jessica has a way of pulling me back into them. A little background. I recently got engaged to my fiancé, Mark, 31M. We've been together for 4 years and have a strong, healthy relationship. I was over the moon about planning the wedding, envisioning it as a beautiful, intimate celebration with our closest family and friends. Mark and I agreed we wanted around 70 guests, primarily immediate family and a few close friends. I also made it clear that I wanted a drama-free wedding because we've had enough family stress over the years. The trouble began a few months ago. I had initially included Jessica on the preliminary guest list, thinking that despite our differences, she would respect my boundaries. She seemed excited at first, but as the wedding date approached, she started dropping hints that she intended to shake things up a bit. At first, I ignored it, thinking she was just joking. But a week before my bridal shower, she escalated things. During the bridal shower, Jessica arrived and immediately began critiquing everything. My dress, the decorations, even the cake flavor. She kept whispering to other family members about how she wouldn't have chosen these things and made a show of comparing my engagement ring to hers from when she was married. She's divorced now. I tried to brush it off, but it got worse. When it was time to play the games, she loudly announced that the couple who won the "How Well Do You Know the Bride" game would get a real wedding tip from her. And then she proceeded to reveal extremely personal and embarrassing stories about my past relationships and insecurities. My face turned bright red, and I felt frozen as everyone laughed, not in a fun way, but at my expense. It was mortifying. My friends later told me it was uncomfortable and that they felt bad for me. My parents tried to intervene, but Jessica was relentless and seemed to feed off the attention. After the shower, I confronted her privately. I told her that her behavior was unacceptable and that I would appreciate it if she could respect me in the upcoming wedding. She rolled her eyes and said, "You're too sensitive. I was just trying to make things fun. You can't control how people react." I tried to explain that humiliating me in front of my friends and family was not fun, but she refused to apologize, saying that I needed to toughen up and that weddings were high-stress environments where she had a right to speak her mind. I was shocked. I had never experienced someone so openly dismissive of my feelings, especially my own sister. I spent the next few weeks debating whether I should still invite her. I wanted a harmonious wedding, and the last thing I wanted was a repeat of the bridal shower disaster. Mark was supportive, and he encouraged me to prioritize my mental well-being. My parents, however, were divided. My mom thinks I'm overreacting and that I should just invite Jessica and let her be herself. My dad is more sympathetic, but hesitates to get involved too much. My friends unanimously support my decision to consider not inviting her. A few days ago, I made the difficult decision to remove Jessica from the wedding guest list. I sent her a text explaining that I could not have her behavior at my wedding and that it was not negotiable. Her response was explosive. She accused me of being petty, dramatic, and ungrateful. She sent several group messages to family members, attempting to pressure me into changing my mind, claiming she would never speak to me again if I didn't include her. Some relatives have reached out to me, saying I'm making waves and that I should reconcile, but I honestly don't see a way forward without risking another public humiliation. I'm feeling a mix of relief and guilt. Relief because I can plan my wedding without fear of being embarrassed, but guilt because I am worried I am permanently damaging my relationship with my sister and possibly other family members. Mark has reassured me that this is about protecting myself and that it's not unreasonable to exclude someone who has a history of intentionally making me feel small. But I can't shake the thought that I might be overreacting and that maybe I should forgive and forget for the sake of family unity. So, Reddit AITA for refusing to invite my sister to my wedding after her behavior at my bridal shower. I feel like I have to stand up for myself, but part of me worries I am crossing a line that can't be uncrossed. I've tried to communicate boundaries, and she's clearly chosen to ignore them. But I also wonder if I'm being unnecessarily harsh. I'm struggling with balancing my happiness and my family's expectations. Has anyone here navigated this kind of sibling drama around a major life event? Could I be wrong for prioritizing my own comfort over family tradition? Or is this justified self-preservation? Hey friends, if you enjoy this content, don't forget to like the video and share your thoughts in the comments. We really want to know what you like and what could be improved. What do you think of the video? Are there any topics you'd like to see in future videos? Your feedback really helps us get better. Thanks for being with us. AITA for ruining my sister's wedding over a disagreement about the seating chart. I, 28F, have always been close with my sister, Emily, 32F. We grew up very tightly knit, though there's always been a little sibling rivalry under the surface. When she got engaged last year, I was genuinely thrilled for her. I immediately offered to help with anything she needed, from dress shopping to vendor calls to planning events. I was actively involved and thought we were on the same page about everything, until a couple of weeks before the wedding. Emily's fiancé, Jason, 34M, comes from a very large extended family. Their guest list is enormous, and seating arrangements became a nightmare. Emily asked me to help finalize the seating chart because I'm very detail-oriented and good at organizing large groups of people. I agreed, thinking it would be fun and helpful. I didn't anticipate it would become such a minefield. When we sat down to map out the tables, I noticed a problem. There were several people Emily wanted to sit at the same table, but it would have been awkward for multiple reasons. Some of her friends had a history of arguments at past events. Some were estranged relatives who wouldn't interact well, and a few people were known for being disruptive. I suggested moving a few of them around, and I thought Emily would understand. Instead, she immediately became defensive, insisting that everyone must sit exactly where she planned. I tried to explain my reasoning politely, but she insisted it was her day and that I was overstepping. The main issue arose with her college friend group. Emily wanted them all together at one large table. I noticed that one of the people in the group, Sarah, had a tense history with another guest, Linda, who was being seated nearby because she was Jason's cousin. I gently suggested splitting the table to avoid drama, but Emily was adamant that the table stay as she wanted. I tried again, emphasizing that it could prevent awkward confrontations, but Emily told me I was being controlling. I left it alone initially, thinking I could just be present and stay out of it. But then I discovered that Emily had also seated her ex-boyfriend, Mark, at a table very close to her new fiancé's friends. I knew this could be a problem, as Mark had a reputation for being flirtatious and inappropriate at events, and he had been a source of tension between Emily and Jason in the past. I mentioned this concern to Emily, pointing out that it might ruin the mood or cause a scene, but she brushed it off. The night before the wedding, I noticed some glaring issues while reviewing the final seating chart again. There were multiple instances where I anticipated conflict. People who had publicly bad blood or past disagreements were seated directly across from each other, and some tables were disproportionately mixed in ways that could make it hard for guests to socialize comfortably. I also saw that a few elderly relatives were at tables far from restrooms, which would be inconvenient. I couldn't sleep knowing the potential issues, and I made the decision to adjust the seating chart slightly without Emily knowing. I moved a few people to different tables to avoid conflicts, redistributed some guests for better balance, and ensured that elderly relatives had more convenient seating. I double-checked everything to make sure the changes were minimal but effective. I did not change her friend's main group table or remove anyone from the guest list. I thought of it as a practical, caring intervention. The wedding day arrived, and everything seemed fine at first. People mingled, the ceremony went off without a hitch, and I felt relieved. However, Emily immediately noticed that some people were not sitting where she placed them. She pulled me aside and demanded to know why I had messed with her wedding. I explained my reasoning calmly, emphasizing that I was trying to prevent conflict and make the day more enjoyable for everyone. She exploded. She yelled that I had disrespected her wishes, undermined her authority, and essentially hijacked her wedding. Jason tried to mediate, saying he understood my intentions, but that Emily had a right to her choices. Things escalated when Emily confronted several guests about their seating, and a minor argument broke out at one table. While it wasn't catastrophic, it caused tension and made the atmosphere a little uncomfortable. Emily stormed out of the reception briefly, and I stayed behind trying to smooth things over with guests. Several of them thanked me privately, saying they appreciated the thoughtful seating arrangement, but Emily didn't hear that. After the wedding, the fallout was worse than I anticipated. Emily refused to speak to me for 2 weeks. Our parents took her side, saying that I had no right to override the bride. I felt hurt because I genuinely thought I was preventing problems, not causing them. I even apologized for not consulting her before making changes, but Emily said that the apology was meaningless and that I had betrayed her. I tried to explain to friends and family that I wasn't trying to control the wedding, but was trying to help, yet many people think I overstepped. Emily has hinted that our relationship will never be the same, and I'm starting to feel guilty, even though I believe my intentions were good. So, AITA for secretly adjusting my sister's wedding seating chart to prevent conflicts, even though she didn't want me to. Additional context, I didn't change anything about the ceremony, the food, or any major decisions. Only minor seating adjustments. I also made sure that no one was offended by their new table, and I tried to anticipate potential issues without altering her vision. I'm torn between feeling like I did the right thing and feeling like I completely ruined my sister's special day. AITA for refusing to let my sister's fiancé stay in my house after a fight over family responsibilities. I, 32F, have always been the responsible sibling. My younger sister, Jenna, 28F, is sweet but has always struggled with taking accountability for things. She tends to be more impulsive and tends to leave the hard work to others. Our parents are supportive, but they're older and have health issues. So over the past few years, I've naturally taken on more responsibilities when it comes to family matters, holidays, and logistics. I live in a medium-sized city and own my own home, which has 2 spare bedrooms, so I'm often the one people come to when there's a family emergency or when someone needs a place to stay. Jenna has been dating her fiancé, Mark, 30M, for about 3 years. He's generally quiet, agreeable, and polite, but he is very dependent on Jenna when it comes to decision-making and planning. They got engaged last year, and the wedding is set for late summer. I've helped quite a bit with wedding planning. Everything from helping pick venues to managing guest lists, but I've always felt like I was doing more than my fair share because Jenna rarely takes initiative. 2 weeks ago, Jenna called me upset because Mark's apartment situation had suddenly fallen through. He had been living in a short-term rental because he's relocating for work, and apparently, the landlord gave him a notice to vacate earlier than expected. Jenna said she and Mark had no place to stay for the next month and asked if they could stay with me temporarily. I agreed, mostly because I felt obligated, but I made it clear that they would need to contribute to household chores and expenses while they stayed. I also told them that I have a busy schedule with work and other commitments, and I couldn't run around doing everything for them. The first few days went okay, but then tension started. Mark would leave dishes in the sink for days, use my office space without asking, and generally act like he was visiting a hotel rather than someone's home. Jenna tried to mediate, but she often sided with Mark, saying things like he's stressed, give him a break. I asked Mark to take responsibility for cleaning up after himself and contributing to groceries and utilities, but he would either forget or brush it off. Things came to a head last weekend. My parents were coming over for dinner, which I had been preparing all day. Mark didn't offer to help and instead spent the afternoon playing video games in the living room. When I asked him to help set the table, he said he was too tired because he had been up late working. I was frustrated, but tried to brush it off. Later, Jenna joined him in the living room, and when I asked her to help with dinner, she rolled her eyes and said I was making a big deal out of nothing. The combination of disrespect and lack of effort pushed me over the edge. I told them that if they couldn't respect my home and contribute to daily life, they couldn't stay. Jenna exploded. She said I was being unreasonable and that I was treating them like children. She insisted that I was being selfish because I wasn't accommodating her fiancé. I explained that I was trying to be fair and that it wasn't unreasonable to ask guests to clean up after themselves and contribute a little when staying for a month. She accused me of being controlling and said this was going to cause a huge rift in the family. I stayed firm and gave them 2 days to find alternative accommodations. They left after 2 days, and Jenna has barely spoken to me since. Our parents are caught in the middle. They agree that Mark should have been more responsible, but they also think I could have been more flexible given the situation. Some extended family members have chimed in as well. A few of my cousins think I was being too harsh, saying that when someone is in a tough spot, family should step up without conditions. Others think I was right to set boundaries, especially since this was going to be a month-long stay, not a weekend. I understand that families should help each other, but I also believe that boundaries are necessary to prevent resentment and burnout. Now, Jenna has been sending passive-aggressive messages, like posting on social media about family not being supportive, and Mark has been avoiding contact altogether. I've tried reaching out calmly to explain my side, but Jenna either ignores me or escalates the conversation. Our parents are disappointed that things have gotten so tense, and I feel guilty for causing this conflict, even though I firmly believe I acted reasonably. I don't mind helping my sister, and I've done a lot over the years. But this situation felt different because it wasn't an emergency. They just couldn't plan ahead and were expecting me to drop everything for a month. I also think Mark needed to understand that staying in someone else's home comes with responsibilities. So, AITA for refusing to let my sister and her fiancé stay in my house under these conditions? I feel like I was trying to protect my home and sanity, but the backlash from my sister, parents, and some family members is making me question if I overreacted. I want to emphasize that I didn't kick them out abruptly. I gave them notice and explained my reasons. I also offered help finding alternative places to stay, but Jenna refused to look seriously until the last minute. The main point of conflict seems to be that I expected them to contribute to the household, and they interpreted that as being unkind or controlling. I know relationships with siblings are complicated, and I want to maintain a healthy relationship with Jenna, but I also want to feel respected in my own home. I'm hoping someone can give me an objective perspective. So, Reddit AITA for drawing a line and asking that my sister's fiancé respect my house rules and contribute while staying with me. AITA for refusing to host my sister's wedding after she insulted my fiancé. I've 32F been with my fiancé, Mark, 34M, for almost 6 years now. We live in a small city, and we've been saving for a house for a while. I have a younger sister, Emily, 28F, who's always been a bit high-strung and controlling. Our family is fairly close, though tensions sometimes flare up when Emily gets too opinionated about things that don't concern her. Emily got engaged about a year ago, and right after that, she started dropping hints that she wanted me to host the wedding at my place. At first, I thought she was joking, but then she became very serious. She wanted the wedding to be intimate and family-centered, and she claimed that my house would be the perfect venue. The problem is, Mark and I rent a 2-bedroom apartment, and we've been planning to buy a small house. Our space is nowhere near suitable for even a small wedding, let alone the guest list she had in mind, which she initially said was 40 people and eventually ballooned to 70. Well, I told her our place wouldn't work and that it would be better to rent a small hall or a backyard venue. She got visibly upset. She said that family should support family and that I was being selfish for not offering my home. I tried to reason with her, pointing out the practical issues like parking, space, neighbors, and comfort. She brushed everything off, saying she'd make it work somehow. I told her we weren't hosting the wedding and suggested helping in other ways, like assisting with planning or contributing financially. That's when things escalated. Emily said that by not offering my place, I was showing favoritism toward Mark and implied that I didn't care about family traditions. She kept bringing up past times when I had declined family requests and framed them as proof that I was uncooperative. A few weeks later, she invited us to a wedding planning meeting at her fiancé's parents' house. Mark and I went, thinking it would be civil. During the meeting, Emily started talking about seating arrangements and color schemes. At one point, she said, I just hope your place would have been better. At least then we wouldn't have to deal with Mark's messy habits. I was stunned. Mark has always been tidy, and the only reason she would say that is because she doesn't like him. He laughed it off, but I could tell he was hurt. I felt embarrassed and angry, especially because our family just nodded along without correcting her. After that, I decided I wasn't going to contribute to the wedding in any way that would involve hosting or preparing our home. Emily texted me, accusing me of being a terrible sister, and claimed that Mark was poisoning my mind against her. I replied politely that we'd be happy to attend and celebrate with them, but hosting the wedding was not possible. She responded with a long message listing every selfish thing I had done in the past, and ended it with, "I guess your apartment and your precious fiancé are more important than me." Things got worse when she started posting passive-aggressive messages on social media. She shared articles about family members who don't support weddings and tagged me. Some of our relatives reached out privately, asking me to just compromise and help her out a little. I explained the situation in detail, but a few of them still implied that I was being selfish. I tried talking to Emily one more time, saying that I felt hurt by the comments she made about Mark and that we would like to be treated respectfully. She told me that I was overreacting and that she was only joking. She then demanded again that I host the wedding, offering to pay for any inconvenience or even to let us stay elsewhere during the event. I politely declined and emphasized that our space simply couldn't accommodate the wedding, but she kept pushing. Mark has been supportive throughout, but he's frustrated by the way Emily has treated him. He's particularly upset about her implying he's messy and unworthy. I've tried to mediate between them, but every conversation ends with Emily accusing me of taking his side and never putting family first. Now, we're in a stalemate. Emily has rented a venue elsewhere, but she still posts comments online about the family member who couldn't be bothered. I haven't responded. Our parents are caught in the middle, encouraging us to keep the peace, but not really taking sides. Mark feels unwelcome at family events because Emily continues to make digs at him, and I feel torn between protecting my relationship and maintaining a connection with my sister. I want to attend her wedding and support her, but I cannot bring myself to host it or let her insult Mark without consequences. Some relatives think I'm being unreasonable, saying that I should just bite the bullet for family harmony. Others have told me I'm justified in standing my ground. AITA for refusing to host my sister's wedding and insisting on respect for my fiancé. AITA for refusing to attend my sister's wedding after discovering a family secret. I, 32F, have always been very close to my family, especially my younger sister, Emma, 28F. We grew up in a loving household with our parents, Mark, 58M, and Linda, 56F, and our relationship has always been solid. We share everything with each other, or at least I thought we did. That changed a few months ago. Emma got engaged to her boyfriend, Jake, 30M, a guy I had met a few times and always liked. They were happy together, and I was genuinely excited for her. We started helping with the wedding preparations, from dress fittings to seating charts. I was even asked to be her maid of honor, which I accepted enthusiastically. Everything seemed perfect until my parents invited me over one evening for a family chat. At first, I thought it was about wedding logistics or finances, but the conversation quickly took a very different turn. My mother sat me down and hesitated before telling me that Jake, my sister's fiancé, was actually the biological son of our family's longtime friend and neighbor, Karen. I paused, confused, and she clarified. Years ago, Karen had a brief affair with my father, and Jake is the product of that affair. She explained that my parents had discovered this a few years back, but never told anyone, including Emma. I felt like the ground had dropped from beneath me. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. My father tried to justify it, saying it had nothing to do with Emma and that it was purely a coincidence that she ended up with Jake. He insisted that they hadn't known when Emma and Jake started dating and that he didn't see why I should make a big deal about it. My mother added that they didn't want to tell Emma because it could ruin her happiness. I left their house feeling nauseous. I couldn't stop thinking about the situation. Emma had been dating Jake for almost 3 years, completely unaware that he was her half-brother. The thought alone made me feel sick, and I couldn't imagine attending a wedding that, in a very real sense, was a union between siblings, even though neither of them knew it. The next day, I confronted Emma. I told her what I had learned, and at first, she didn't believe me. She asked me to stop joking and insisted that I must be mistaken. I gave her the details I had from my parents, but she was angry at me for bringing this out of nowhere and ruining things. She said she would talk to Jake and my parents, but I could see that she was scared and confused. Over the next week, Emma spoke to Jake, and he seemed shocked but also skeptical. He confronted Karen, who admitted the truth reluctantly. Apparently, she had never told anyone because she didn't want to disrupt her friendship with my family and thought Jake didn't need to know either. Jake now faced the reality that he had unknowingly been in a romantic relationship with his half-sister. Emma's reaction was complicated. She said she felt betrayed, but she also said that she didn't want to break off the wedding because she loved Jake and believed that the relationship was meant to be. She argued that they hadn't known and that love shouldn't be punished for circumstances outside their control. I tried to explain the ethical and biological implications, and she got defensive, accusing me of overreacting and trying to ruin her happiness. After several heated conversations, I told my parents that I could not attend the wedding. I couldn't be part of a celebration that, biologically, was incestuous. I couldn't reconcile my feelings about the situation, and I felt that attending would make me complicit in ignoring a massive family secret. My parents called me dramatic, Emma called me judgmental, and even some friends said I was overreacting. I've since been accused of forcing my morals on others and not supporting my sister in a difficult time. My sister tried to convince me that this secret was irrelevant and that what mattered was their love for each other. My parents keep insisting I'm overreacting and that I should forgive and forget for the sake of family unity. I feel like if I compromise, I'll be betraying my own values. Now, the wedding date is approaching, and tensions are at an all-time high. I've made it clear that I will not attend under any circumstances. I've been cut out of some wedding communications, and my relationship with my parents and sister has become strained. I feel isolated because I genuinely care about my family, but I also feel like attending would make me complicit in something deeply uncomfortable and morally questionable. So, AITA for refusing to attend my sister's wedding after learning that she is unknowingly marrying her half-brother. I understand that neither of them knew, but I also can't ignore the facts. I want to support my sister, but I also can't compromise on this. I've considered explaining my reasons in detail, but every time I try, the conversation escalates into arguments. I just don't know how to navigate this without completely destroying my relationship with the people I care about most. I feel torn between family loyalty and my own ethical boundaries, and I don't know if my refusal makes me selfish, overreacting, or morally right. The situation has left me emotionally drained, and I keep questioning if there's a way to support Emma without attending the wedding. But every option seems to carry consequences that could permanently damage our family bond. The biggest question I keep asking myself is whether my reaction is proportionate to the circumstances or if I'm allowing a shocking secret to override my love and support for my sister. Has anyone been in a situation like this? How do you draw the line between moral conviction and family loyalty? I need perspective because right now I feel like I'm standing on a fault line and every step could trigger an irreparable fracture. AITA for refusing to give my sister's fiancé a second chance after he humiliated me in front of my entire family? I'm a 28-year-old woman, and my sister, 31, has been with her fiancé, Mark, for about 4 years. I've always had a cordial relationship with Mark, but I never felt particularly close to him. He's charming when he wants to be, but I've noticed a pattern of arrogance and a lack of awareness of how his words affect others. My sister loves him dearly, and I want her to be happy, but what happened last weekend has made me question whether I can tolerate him at all. Our family had a reunion at my parents' house. It was one of those events where everyone from cousins to second cousins shows up. There were probably about 30 people. I was looking forward to it because my younger cousins had grown up a lot, and I hadn't seen them in over a year. I spent the morning helping my mom with food prep and decorations while my sister and Mark arrived a little late. Things seemed fine at first. Mark was talking to my uncle and some other relatives, and my sister was helping with organizing games for the kids. I was chatting with my cousins when Mark approached me. He was holding a plate with food and smiling, but the smile fell off. He said, "You really need to work on your humor. You're kind of boring sometimes." I was taken aback and laughed awkwardly, thinking maybe he was joking. But he continued, people try to sit and talk to you, and it's just meh. My face went hot, and I felt humiliated, especially because our family tends to enjoy teasing each other. But this felt different. It wasn't playful, it was demeaning. I told him that wasn't funny, and he laughed, shrugging it off, saying, "I'm just being honest. You should lighten up." I tried to brush it off and went back to my cousins. Later, I overheard him telling my cousin that I'm awkward and need a personality transplant, and that's when I lost it. I confronted him in front of a few family members, telling him it was uncalled for and incredibly rude. He responded by laughing and saying I was too sensitive and should take a joke. Some relatives try to calm us down, but I could feel the embarrassment radiating from me. After that, I avoided him as much as possible. My sister noticed I was upset and asked what happened. I told her everything, and she looked shocked. She said she hadn't realized he could be that cruel, and she went to speak to him privately. When she came back, she told me that he apologized and said he didn't mean to hurt me. I was skeptical, but I wanted to give our relationship the benefit of the doubt, so I said I appreciated the apology and would try to move past it. Fast forward to the evening, we were sitting down for dinner. Mark made a comment about how people like me take everything personally while laughing. I felt the color drain from my face. My sister noticed immediately and told him to stop. Mark said, "I'm just joking. Lighten up." At that moment, I felt like no apology could undo what he had done, especially in front of the entire family. I told my sister that I didn't want to spend the rest of the evening around him. I left the table and went into the backyard to get some fresh air. The next morning, my sister sent me a message asking if I was okay and if I could at least try to give Mark another chance. She said that everyone makes mistakes and that he genuinely feels bad. I was torn because I love my sister and don't want to ruin her engagement. But at the same time, I can't ignore the way he treated me, and the idea of pretending like everything was fine made me feel sick. I replied that I wasn't ready to interact with him and that his behavior was unacceptable. I also told her that I don't feel like forgiving him is an obligation, no matter how much she wants me to. She called me later and was clearly frustrated. She said I was overreacting and that refusing to forgive Mark was creating unnecessary tension within the family. She argued that people get criticized all the time and that I should just let it go. I reminded her that this wasn't about minor teasing. It was humiliating me publicly and dismissing my feelings. She said that if I couldn't move past it, she might reconsider having me at future family events. That statement hurt, and I told her I wasn't willing to accept being treated this way just to keep the peace. Since then, the situation has been tense. Some family members have reached out, asking me to forgive Mark, saying that I should be nicer and think about my sister's happiness. Others have told me they understand why I'm upset. I haven't spoken to Mark directly since the reunion. My sister has made attempts to mediate, but I'm firm in my stance. I don't feel like I should have to accept being insulted, even if it's supposedly a joke or if it means keeping harmony in the family. So, AITA for refusing to give my sister's fiancé a second chance after he humiliated me in front of my entire family? I'm trying to be reasonable, but I also feel like some lines, once crossed, shouldn't be ignored. I love my sister, and I want her to be happy, but I'm not sure I can ever feel comfortable around Mark again. My main concern is whether I'm justified in standing my ground, or if I'm overreacting and letting my pride interfere with family unity. AITA for refusing to host my husband's extended family for a month after they expected to move in during a renovation. I, 36F, have been married to my husband, Tom, 38M, for 8 years. We live in a 3-bedroom house that we bought together 5 years ago, and we recently decided to renovate the kitchen and living room because both were outdated and needed major repairs. The renovation is planned to take 3 to 4 weeks, during which we will be staying in the house, but in a very limited space. Our contractor warned us that it would be extremely cramped, with tools, dust, and construction noise, making normal living difficult. Tom's family is very close-knit, and they often expect to be included in every major event or household project. Tom's parents, Linda, 64F, and George, 66M, and his younger brother, Mark, 34M, live within an hour of us. While they're generally nice people, they have a history of overstaying visits and assuming that we will accommodate them without asking properly. A few weeks before the renovation started, Tom casually mentioned that his parents and Mark had talked about moving in for the duration of the work to help out. I was taken aback. I had assumed we would hire temporary help or rearrange our living situation without having 6 extra people living in a 3-bedroom house. I told Tom that I did not think it was realistic for everyone to move in, given the space limitations, noise, and ongoing construction. Tom said he understood, but suggested that maybe his parents could stay for at least 2 weeks, arguing that they could help with meals and keep the kids occupied while we managed the renovation. I explained that this would make the house unlivable for us, and our dog would be stressed by all the extra people and noise. I also pointed out that we had already made plans to eat out or order in during the renovation because the kitchen would be unusable for cooking. Tom's parents were disappointed, but initially seemed to accept our plan for no extended stay. The issue escalated when Mark showed up at our door a week before the renovation, claiming that he would be moving in for as long as needed to help with the project. I firmly told him that our home is not large enough to accommodate him or anyone else for weeks on end, and that the renovation would make the house extremely uncomfortable. Mark argued that it would be helpful for us to have extra hands, but I reiterated that having 6 extra people in a small, under-construction space was not feasible. After this confrontation, Tom called a family meeting with his parents, Mark, and me. His parents tried to convince me that hosting them was the right thing to do as a family, and that I was being too rigid about space. They suggested that we could sleep in separate rooms, use the dining room as a temporary living area, and rotate who cooks and cleans. I explained that the chaos would be overwhelming. The dust and noise from the renovation would make it impossible for anyone to live comfortably, and that I was concerned about our dog's safety with so many people and construction hazard around. The discussion became tense. Mark said I was ungrateful and selfish for not letting them help, while Tom seemed torn between his loyalty to his family and supporting me. He asked if I would allow them to stay for even a few days, but I stood firm, explaining that a short visit might be possible after work hours, but living in the house during the entire renovation was out of the question. A few days later, Linda sent me a text saying she couldn't believe I would deny family help and implied that I was making the renovation more stressful for Tom by being uncooperative. I replied politely but firmly, reiterating that we had planned this renovation carefully and that adding extra residents would make it unsafe and unmanageable. She responded with a passive-aggressive message about not knowing how to be part of a family and accused me of creating unnecessary conflict. The renovation started last week, and true to expectations, the house is cramped and chaotic. I hired a temporary cleaning service to help manage dust and mess, and we ordered meals or cooked minimally using a hot plate. We have kept visits from family to a minimum, only brief check-ins from Tom's parents, and everyone has respected our boundaries. The experience has been stressful, but manageable. Since then, Tom's parents and Mark have expressed frustration in private, claiming that I turned them away and made the renovation more difficult for Tom. They've implied to extended family that I was unreasonable and unkind, while Tom has been trying to mediate without upsetting me. I feel like I am being painted as the villain for simply protecting our home, our privacy, and our mental health during a difficult renovation. Several friends have told me I made the right choice, emphasizing that a renovation is a temporary but intense period and no family should expect to move in without explicit consent. However, I'm feeling guilty because my husband seems stressed about balancing his loyalty to his family and supporting me, and I worry that I have caused a lasting rift. So, AITA for refusing to let my husband's extended family move into our house during a major renovation, even though they believe they were offering to help and think I am being unreasonable. AITA for refusing to host my brother's wedding after he insulted my parenting. I, 34F, have always been close to my family, especially my younger brother, Mark, 30M. Growing up, we shared a lot of experiences, and I often consider myself a second parent to him at times because of the age difference and the fact that our parents traveled a lot for work. I have a 6-year-old daughter, Lily, who is the center of my world, and my life revolved around balancing work, parenting, and maintaining relationships with family and friends. Recently, Mark got engaged to his fiancée, Emma, 29F, who I had met only a few times. I've always tried to be welcoming and supportive of Emma because I want Mark to be happy. However, from the beginning, Emma and I have had a tense dynamic. It's not overtly hostile, but there's a palpable discomfort between us, like we're constantly trying to measure who fits better into the family. Mark and Emma insisted that I host their wedding at my house. I was surprised because my home is modest, and while it's cozy, it isn't the ideal venue for a big event. I tried to politely suggest alternatives, including a local hall or a garden venue, explaining that hosting a wedding involves enormous amounts of stress, preparation, and cost. They brushed it off, claiming that my house was perfectly intimate and personal, and that it would make their wedding more meaningful. I hesitated, but agreed in principle. I thought it could be manageable if we limited the guest list and kept things simple. I began organizing things, but soon the reality hit. Between Lily's school schedule, my full-time job, and trying to renovate parts of my home to accommodate guests, I was completely overwhelmed. I had to coordinate catering, decorations, seating, parking, and the inevitable, unpredictable guests. On top of that, Emma started micromanaging every detail of the wedding, insisting that certain flowers be arranged in a specific pattern, the napkins folded a certain way, and that certain guests be placed in strategically important seating spots. Every time I made a decision, she would question it or override it. I tried to stay calm and accommodate reasonable requests, but it was exhausting. The tipping point came about 3 weeks before the wedding. I was struggling to manage the balance between work, Lily, and the wedding preparations. I asked Mark and Emma to help cover some of the expenses or hire external help. Mark replied, in a tone that still stings, "You can't complain. You're always bragging about being a hands-on parent. If you can't handle a few weeks of a party, maybe you shouldn't be parenting full-time." I was shocked. Not only was this completely uncalled for, but it felt like he was attacking my parenting abilities over something unrelated. I tried to brush it off, thinking maybe he didn't realize the weight of what he said. Over the next few days, the stress mounted. Emma continued to scrutinize everything in my home, and Mark kept making comments that implied I was not capable of doing things correctly. I felt disrespected and unappreciated. One evening, after a particularly tense day, I told Mark and Emma that I could no longer host the wedding. I explained that their insistence had caused me significant stress, and I could not continue being responsible for every aspect of the event. I also told them that the comment about my parenting was unacceptable and hurtful. I suggested again that they consider a professional venue or at least hire a wedding planner. The backlash was immediate. Mark accused me of being selfish and undermining his big day. Emma said I was dramatic and overreacting. My parents, who have always tried to mediate, were disappointed that I had refused to host, but they also acknowledged that Mark's comment was insensitive. Mark went on a rant on social media about how his sister ruined his wedding and accused me of being too sensitive and controlling. The post went viral within our family circle, and I've received texts from distant relatives asking why I wouldn't do this one thing for my brother. I've tried to explain my perspective calmly. Hosting a wedding is a massive undertaking that requires time, energy, and money, and doing it while maintaining full-time responsibilities and caring for a child was not feasible. The fact that Mark questioned my parenting while I was already struggling pushed me over the edge. I told him I would support him and Emma in planning their wedding in other ways, like helping with the guest list, sending invitations, or coordinating small details, but I cannot be the main host. They continue to insist that I'm overreacting and making the situation about myself. Now, I'm caught in a whirlwind of family drama. My parents are trying to stay neutral, but I can sense their disappointment. Some friends have supported my decision, saying it's reasonable to set boundaries, while others are asking if I should just suck it up for my brother's big day. I feel hurt, frustrated, and guilty, but also relieved that I finally said no. I love my brother, but I also love my daughter and my mental health, and I'm struggling with the backlash of prioritizing my boundaries. So, Reddit AITA for refusing to host my brother's wedding after he insulted my parenting. I feel like I'm being made to choose between supporting my family's big day and respecting my own limits. And I'm not sure if my refusal is being interpreted as selfishness or self-preservation. I genuinely want to support my brother, but not at the cost of my well-being and dignity. AITA for refusing to host my sister's wedding rehearsal after she completely disregarded my boundaries. I, 32F, have always been very close with my family, especially my younger sister, Emily, 28F. We grew up in a small town where everyone knows everyone, and our parents were very involved in our lives. I have always tried to maintain a balance between supporting my family and maintaining my own personal space and boundaries. Over the years, I've been the go-to person for big events, birthdays, and family gatherings, often volunteering my house for celebrations and helping organize everything. I've never minded. I genuinely like hosting and making people feel comfortable. Emily recently got engaged to her fiancé, Mark, 30M, and the wedding planning has been a whirlwind. She has always been very particular and slightly controlling when it comes to organizing things, which I knew going in. I told her multiple times that I would be happy to help in general, but I didn't want to host any major pre-wedding events at my house. My house is small, and I live alone with my cat, so space is limited. I have always been upfront about this. Fast forward to last month, Emily called me, sounding frantic. She said that the original venue for her wedding rehearsal had fallen through due to a double booking and that she urgently needed somewhere for the rehearsal dinner. She begged me to host it at my house, emphasizing that it would only be a small gathering of about 20 people and that everyone loved my backyard and garden. I was hesitant and said no multiple times. I explained that my house was small, my backyard barely accommodates more than 10 people comfortably, and my kitchen is not suited for catering for 20 people. I also mentioned that I had plans that week and would not be able to dedicate the day to hosting and preparing for such an event. Emily got upset and started pressuring me. She said, "You've hosted things before. You don't have to make it fancy. It's just a rehearsal. We're family. You should help." I told her that it wasn't about the fanciness. It was about space, logistics, and timing. I even suggested alternative solutions, like renting a small community hall, booking a local restaurant, or having the rehearsal dinner at her fiancé's parents' house. But she brushed them off, saying they were too impersonal and wouldn't have the right vibe. Over the next week, Emily continued to guilt-trip me. She would send long texts about how she didn't know who else to ask, how devastated she would be if I didn't help, and how all her friends had already agreed to come to my house. She even mentioned that she knew I loved hosting and that it would mean the world to her. I tried to stay firm, but I could feel myself getting stressed. Finally, I told her I absolutely could not host the rehearsal dinner. I offered to help in other ways, like assisting with decorations, running errands, or helping coordinate a rental space. She got very angry, accusing me of being selfish and unsupportive. She went as far as saying that I was choosing my cat over my sister and that I didn't care about her special day. I was shocked. I tried to explain that my cat has health issues and that hosting 20 people would be chaotic and stressful, potentially putting both my cat and myself at risk. I thought that was reasonable, but she kept insisting that it was just one night and I could handle it. A week later, Emily went ahead and hosted the rehearsal dinner at my house without my permission. She claimed she thought I'd changed my mind and just assumed it would be okay. She invited friends, family, and even a few neighbors. When I came home that evening, I found people in my living room, food everywhere, and my cat hiding under the bed, terrified. I was furious and immediately asked everyone to leave. Emily got defensive and said, "You're overreacting, it's fine, we cleaned up." I told her that it wasn't about cleanliness. It was about boundaries and consent. She argued that I should have trusted her judgment and that I was ruining the night for everyone. The confrontation escalated. She accused me of being controlling and cold, while I pointed out that she had blatantly ignored my repeated refusals and taken over my home without permission. I reminded her that this was not just a small infraction. This was a violation of my personal space and trust. She responded by saying, "You're my sister. You're supposed to support me no matter what." After that night, I blocked her on my phone for a few days to cool down. Our parents called me, asking why I had been so harsh and unaccommodating, but I explained the situation, emphasizing that Emily had disregarded my boundaries entirely. They were disappointed, but eventually understood. I haven't spoken to Emily much since the incident, and she's been sending me passive-aggressive texts and social media messages implying that I'm a terrible sister. Some friends have said that I should have just hosted it and gotten over it, but others think Emily's behavior was completely inappropriate. I feel guilty sometimes because I do care about her, but I also feel violated and upset that she would assume my consent for such a personal space. My anxiety has spiked since the incident, and I'm seriously reconsidering how much I want to be involved in family events going forward. So, AITA for refusing to host my sister's wedding rehearsal and for standing firm on my boundaries, even though she and others think I should have just said yes. Thank you for watching until the end. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel so you won't miss new videos also. Leave a comment. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Your support and engagement mean a lot to me. See you in the next video.